War can be considered a business because it involves economic activity that generates profits for various parties involved. This includes the production and sale of weapons, ammunition, and other military equipment, as well as the provision of logistics and support services. Additionally, wars often involve the exploitation of resources, such as oil or minerals, which can be lucrative for companies or countries involved in their extraction and sale. Furthermore, wars can create new markets and opportunities for businesses, particularly in the aftermath of conflicts when reconstruction and rebuilding efforts are necessary. This can involve the construction of infrastructure, the provision of services like healthcare and education, and the establishment of new businesses. While it's important to note that war also has devastating consequences for human life and society as a whole, the economic incentives for some parties to engage in conflict have led some to view war as a business. War is a destructive force that has the power to tear apart entire societies and leave lasting scars on the individuals and communities that experience it. However, despite its devastating impact, war is also a business, with economic activity and profit generation playing a significant role in many conflicts throughout history. At its core, war is a costly endeavor that requires resources and funding to sustain. From the purchase of weapons and ammunition to the provision of logistical support and the training of soldiers, the cost of waging war can quickly add up. This has created a thriving industry centered around the production and sale of military equipment, with companies and countries around the world investing significant resources into the development of new weapons and technologies. The global arms trade is worth hundreds of billions of dollars annually, with major players like the United States, Russia, and China dominating the market. These countries not only produce weapons and other military equipment for their own use but also export them to other nations and groups engaged in conflict. In some cases, the supply of weapons has even been a driving force behind the continuation of certain conflicts, with arms dealers and manufacturers profiting from the ongoing violence. In addition to the production and sale of weapons, war also involves the exploitation of resources. In many conflicts, control over resources like oil, minerals, and other valuable commodities plays a central role in the fighting. For example, the ongoing conflict in Syria has been fueled in part by competing interests over control of the country's oil reserves. Similarly, the wars in the Democratic Republic of Congo have been driven by competition over the country's rich mineral deposits. The exploitation of resources can be highly profitable for those involved, with companies and governments seeking to profit from the extraction and sale of natural resources. However, this often comes at a steep cost for the local populations who live in the affected areas, as their lands and resources are destroyed or taken over by outside actors. Beyond the production and sale of military equipment and the exploitation of resources, war also creates new markets and opportunities for businesses. In the aftermath of conflicts, there is often a need for reconstruction and rebuilding efforts, which can involve the construction of new infrastructure, the provision of healthcare and education services, and the establishment of new businesses. In many cases, businesses and governments have sought to profit from the reconstruction and rebuilding efforts following conflicts. For example, after the Iraq War, private companies were contracted to rebuild the country's infrastructure, leading to allegations of corruption and waste. Similarly, in Afghanistan, billions of dollars were spent on reconstruction efforts, with much of the money going to foreign contractors and companies rather than local Afghan businesses and workers. While the economic incentives for engaging in conflict are clear, it's important to note that war also has devastating consequences for human life and society as a whole. The cost of war goes far beyond the financial impact, with the loss of human life, displacement of populations, and destruction of infrastructure and communities creating lasting harm that can take generations to overcome. In conclusion, war is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that involves economic activity and profit generation alongside the destruction and devastation that it causes. While the economic incentives for engaging in conflict are clear, it's important to remember the human toll of war and to work towards finding peaceful solutions to conflict wherever possible.